Julie here with Sirius Taurus Moon, and this is Jupiter ruling ascendant and midheaven, ascendant adjacent to Mercury at 19 degrees Pisces Mercury hour. The Moon has crossed Saturn and Neptune, and we just crossed Venus hour. Well, Saturn Neptune in Aries is definitely, I wouldn't say a clash of civilizations, but definitely, since the veil is thinning, then many people that never actually met begin to encounter the implications of one another's beings. And it is not for nothing that Neptune in Aries is colonialism o'clock, because individuals from really far away and secluded places come to really far away and secluded places and meet really far and secluded individuals. So this encounter is not only a clash between cultures, but a clash between the individual and the culture, and the individual and the local culture, and the individual and the um, touristic culture or arriving culture. And this is where the cultures and the perspectives are so different that it's almost difficult to have communication that's understood. And sovereignty is the issue. I said with Aries, we should not assume that people are ignorant, stupid, losers, or not sovereign, or that they don't have a reasoning. Violating one another's sovereignty is the biggest no-no in Aries. Aries is the live and let live sign authentically. And that begins to harm people's hearts. You can't expect to enslave people and be respected, honored, um, appreciated, celebrated, or even respected. The solar eclipse in Aquarius took even the people that were considered fighting for human rights. What about women rights? What about zero rape? What about stopping to mythify the tortured, trafficked, and raped person as fighter for the nation? If your community agrees that you will be raped, your community deserves to die. And notice how the veil of ignorance, not knowing the names, not knowing the bloodlines, not knowing the cultures, not knowing who it is, exposes us to, okay, how we behave when our boundaries are violated. We don't care who it is now. Think about it. I think it was one of the movies that Beyonce did. And she was looking for inspiration for dance moves uh, in African countries. And she was so excited about people having zero idea who she is. And this is, and I want to emphasize the positive potential here, because if we allow ourselves to forget for a second what we've known and see the potential here, what happens when we meet people that have no idea who we are? This veil of it, they don't know if we are rich or we are poor. They don't know if we are white or we are black. They don't know if we are a woman or a man. Then the real values begin to emerge. Hey, if this thing violates my boundaries, I don't want it. And I think it raises the frequency. Also, with the astral field, people will take on a certain persona and nobody has any idea who that person is. Or if they are who they present themselves to be. Let's say they say, I don't know, they come as a populist leader in so and so country, trying to get in bed astrally with someone. So they don't know who are they, if they are the Seraph, who is it. It's just like, hey, that thing violates my boundaries. Well, somebody tries to create an interaction and then they're like, ah, you are this, you are that. It's like, you don't know me. Now, of course, it brings a lot of frustrations, but here's the thing: the people that are going to suffer the most are people that are not aligned with sovereignty. That they either don't have sense of self or don't respect sense of self. People that grew up in slavery masters, people that grew up in not all people being sovereign, individual people with sense of self. They're going to suffer the most because they expect to be well treated when they mistreat. This is why this is, I'm not saying the fall of the elite, because it's not just the elite, it's also the traditional people. I think Saturn in Aries was when Somalia abolished child marriages. And the news showed how there's a young woman broadcasting in the news, showing how the traditional, okay, the elderly people, and there are there are certain African countries and villages where if you're going to meet an elderly person, you kneel before them as an act of respect. And so she's showing how these people, that people are used to kneel before them, say, we go by Islam, and how they look miserable and, I'm sorry, ridiculous, that they react this way to abolishing child marriages when they're supposed to be the pillars of wisdom of society. So when we say the fall of the elite, it is in essence the fall of the courtesan, the master and slave, those artificial divisions. The way we have come accustomed to identify by blood, by name, by lineage, all erased. Nobody knows when your people are exiled in Ekveld. Nobody knows. And this is, a lot of situations where people are in exile. They say, wait a second, the country is at war. And the people that are the native to the place, the country is at war. They come here to escape. Amazing. They rape the women. Of course, they were genocided. Okay, if Israelis tomorrow go to exile in, let's say, Thailand. Thailand is not a problem because in Thailand they're allowed to rape women. They're allowed to rape 12 years old girls for money. And the government cuts money from that, cuts intelligence from that, extorts Israel, and then Israel is the war criminal. But let's say Israelis are exiled to countries not allowed to rape at all. What will they say about Israelis? They ran away. I don't know. Iran came, U.S. came. Not all people are their governments. But why so many of them justify? Even the women, they justify rape. Not by calling to locate the technologies that abolish rape. That to locate the technologies that create rape so that we can use technology to abolish rape. Or we can counter the technology that. No, but those women that said the Me Too went too far. Israeli women traffic Israeli women? So they created their invasion. Whereas from within the society, people are like, this enemy, that enemy, this and they are animals, they are monsters. And so this happens upon war to many people. And Saturn rules refugees, Neptune rules exile. With Neptune, we can travel to when Neptune was in around my ascendant, I was by necessity during a pandemic traveling to my other homeland. And by the way, because I was not an informant, I did not get residence. So Neptune rules exile. And you'd be surprised how the many things we've taken, the many things that we didn't know, suddenly begin to arise. And this creates a situation where, because of that veil of ignorance, it's clearer what the actual values of people are. It's clear that people begin to respond to something, and when something tries to put them in a rubric where it's not authentically them, they don't respond well to that. When something always tries to prevent people from being sovereign, they don't respond well to that. And it doesn't matter who that somebody is. Now, this raises the frequency also regarding relationships in a roundabout way, because people set the boundaries so fiercely. Love cannot live in a place where sense of self-sovereignty, erotic and non-erotic, is honored. Think about, I think it was Anne Boleyn that said no to Henry the Fifth, Henry the Eighth, because for her it was obvious. That guy mistreats women. He says, I only have one head. That guy mistreats women. He's the king, he's the this, he's that. Okay, but does he treat a woman well? Does he respect a woman? Does he honor her erotic self or non-erotic self? Is her life, energy, and sexuality and fertility sacred, and her yes and no sacred to him? And this raising of the frequency around relations, particularly with Venus ruling Uranus. Now Venus is crossed Rahu. And here is the thing. People address the missing. They don't commit to something that is not honoring, respectful, and the veil of ignorance has been lifted. So people don't buy the trickery that they try to put on people. They said the people, you know what happened? Think about after the Me Too. There was a time where, before the Me Too, it was like, who would believe us? After the Me Too, it was like, of course. If they don't believe us, it's because they are raping and trafficking and making money by drug and child trafficking with Epstein. That's why they don't believe. Because they are the traffickers. And if it's an entire society, it's wonder that they are in risk of exile. So now people all around the world see that the people that believe in slavery are the ones that want to have slaves. Not the ones that have slaves. The ones that have slaves no longer believe in slavery because they see the reality. The reality is that a person is sovereign. If they try to enslave them, they are with typhus, with this, with that, with that. And if they try to maintain the slave both alive and by them, they have to maintain the dignity of a sovereign person by land, by house, by clothing, by rest, by honoring, by legacy. Only then that person will not rebel, and only then that person would respect them. And by for what they actually like to do. Now this exposes a lot of the internal slavery within the elite. Okay? In Sweden, there were a lot of women that came from, back then, many Middle Eastern and African countries. And when it came to the common people, it was not elite trafficking rings, many women felt that they're suddenly being treated with respect. Now again, it could have been face value, but day to day, they did not have the persecution that they would have in their cultures. So the men were not merging with society, and the women began to merge, to have jobs, to this exposes also the internal of each society. When I studied German with a German teacher in Israel, and she says, well, a lot of these German men, they go to Thailand and they go to this, just like a lot of women wouldn't see. They come to Israel and see, oh, it's strong men. They don't see what they do in Thailand. And then Thailandic people are like, oh, these Israelis. Your government brings them there because they rape children there and they pay good money and then they extort Israel. And then they buy real estate, they buy this, they buy that, and then the government wants to get rid of that. So they say, no, a person invested the money, they confiscate the money and say that the deal was illegal. But they can only do that because they allowed him to rape your village people, your children that were kidnapped at 12, sold to trafficking. And so people have to be exposed to what's happening within their cultures. First Nations told me they would cannibalize on people. If I see a BIPOC or First Nation woman, she is trafficked. And her community just allows that. The community allows that she will be raped. And mythifies that as this is her struggle or human rights. What the basis is that she will not be raped. There's no human when the person goes through such dehumanizing things. Would you not shoot that community dead to the gutter? And let's face it, who will take care of the children? To put them in trafficking and elite trafficking rings? To put them to be ritually abused? And now it's both the raising of the frequency and the fact that all of these attempts to violate sovereignty and sense of self of people end up with meeting with the actual people in how they see the world. Those that have it master slavery, they're going to be dealing with colonialism. They're going to be dealing with all these things that they considered okay. All the people that thought that Me Too went too far, now they deal with an invader. And they try to portray it as though it is the exact, as though somebody can compromise when it comes to not being raped, when it comes to not being enslaved, when it comes to their sense of self and identity, as though it's some compromise that somebody can make. Morgan, by the way, hey, recording. If the Russian army invades Netherlands, it's going to be a very, very challenging encounter, because Dutch people are very nonchalant and neurodivergent. So if they would meet the enemy, they would just say, "Goeia." But in Russian, it is a curse. Somebody should tell the Russians. And the Russians, they have Their pride matters to them a lot. Yeah. Okay. So again, the people that are gonna have the best time with this Neptune Aries cycle are the people that are in general around live and let live. And when these people find each other, they just enjoy the weird quirks of one another's culture. And this can be some wonderful, wonderful magical experiences. Those are the people that will really, really have the best time.
עוד?
Yeah.
זהו?
So,
בדיוק.
mhm.
צלחת גדול,
Yeah. But here is the thing: the people that have, let's say, questionable inclinations, that they think that this is a time to exploit, this is a time to enslave, that this is a time to rape, they are going to be met with groundbreaking surprises on the different ways. Like I said, First Nations told me they would cannibalize enemy. Okay, somebody comes to rape a girl, she cooks him and eats him. It's food. Not every day a meal presents itself. This dead body can feed an entire village. I say, okay, well, but somebody goes to some place and they were raped there. That entire village dies. Boom. Philippines, Vietnam. That's how they secured their villages. I know we had a person coming from there that was um, working by my grandmother. Why? It takes a village to raise a child. If a child is not safe, they're not being raped, then the entire village goes down. Is this okay, right, wrong? I don't know. That's their way of abolishing rape. Now, what about those communities that, oh, somebody says this, somebody says this, oh, we rape him there? These are communities that are doing what? Enslavement. Those communities, they tend to always meet the bigger devil. This is why I said zero rape, zero slavery, because this transit in Aries, it can be that by necessity, Saturn, but also Aries, by necessity, people travel, and it can be because there is a flood, because there is a war, because there is, I don't know. And it's also they're missing soldiers, missing commanders. And then people have to navigate. Think about women at the Second World War. The men died. So people have to navigate new rules. And then there were the suffragists. The suffragists were in the death camps, but later women had to have the right. All the women that said that the Me Too went too far in the Second World War, later when they had to run a business themselves, you see, when I was going to work before this, during the subprime crisis, or before the subprime crisis, during the subprime crisis, because it reached in a bit of a delay to Israel. Women usually went to work, the husband was providing, and the women went to work to bring some money for food and to do something with their day, to gossip around the office. So when I went to work to basically provide for me, make sure that, because the savings were dwindling with the subprime, so I had to support me and my mother, and I said, wait a second. What, the Philippine woman that went to work by my grandmother's, when before my grandmother died, she supported her entire family by working by us, yes, to help my grandmother to clean. I cannot support my mother and me with a high-tech job. Just my mother and me. What, my mother doesn't deserve to retire? Not even talking about the house and family. I said, what, if I was a single mom right now, or even not a single mom, yeah, I don't get to drink coffee and eat dinner at a working class restaurant before I return home, so that I will not return angry and pissed and so on and so forth, so that I will have my coffee, have my meal, relax, and go back home with peace, bringing peace home, not work home. Now, what happens afterwards? The men are all with post-trauma. You know how many men came back from when you say, oh, but they did genocide? Darling, at wars, all the countries do genocide. That's their job, is to kill peoples. That they should have gone against war, yeah, now in Europe they get it. When people invade your country and kidnap 200 people, then people try to go and see how do they get those 200 people back. And then there are the people that were told that they will have a mansion in Gaza. By the way, not all of them are Israelis. Some from Thailand, very likely, and some from other countries. During the subprime crisis, how many Section 8 invest in Section 8, invest in real estate in the United States, invest in, I'm like, what, they evacuate people from their homes and expect me to buy that estate? To do what there? A debt room mansion? Because this decade after is exactly what happens. All the places got flipped. Why they got flipped? Because if you bought the estate at the subprime, why wouldn't a company send a tenant there to break down the place? Now you have to sell the estate. It's cheaper. Nee, thank you. I'm recording, Mama. Oh, I didn't see it, sorry. So, now, here is the thing. If they would at least wealth redistribute, they said, yeah, all these people, they're survivors of all those trafficking rings. They need housing first, independent of ability to work. Zero rape, zero slavery. Let's say, okay. They steal from those who have to, those who don't have. But if they rape, that's the one and the same. This is Eris Logos. Now, for cultures that it's undecipherable to them, they're going to really be suffering. Because they're, even Israel is very militant culture. Israel culture is going to suffer a lot. It's very militant culture. There was a comedian that made a joke about the army, and it went like this. The guy left 1 hour earlier in his shift at the army. And his commander says to him, why did you leave 1 hour earlier? He says, I did not leave at 4, I left at 5. He says, the camera shows you left at 4. The clock shows you left at 4. The ticket where we register shows you. He says, I don't know what the camera shows, I left at 5. Now, this type of behavior goes only in the IDF. Now, let's face it, for the IDF, if that guy left for the funeral of his best friend's mom or for his girlfriend's dad and needed to be there, my mother was supposed to become an officer back. She had to leave to a funeral. C'est tout. Finita la comedia. Because they had to sign Keva, which basically they have to commit. The committee said no. Back then, it is a job. In militant societies, army is just another job. When I could not go to army because I was shit-fuck suicidal, they declared I was religious because what, and I really did not work Saturday. I tried to see what is this religion thing. There was fear that I will not have a job because I did not go to army. So how will I have a job? How will I have job experience? What job would want me without army? Now I couldn't tell why I was a suicidal. It's because the entire society is Nazi, rapey. There was the case for. Fortunately, there was published the case for Ramon, who assaulted a soldier. And my mother saw this. She knew her daughter would take gun, shoot entire division, and if there is bullets left for me, good. If not, they would probably kill me anyway. If they allow people to be raped, they need to be dead. I don't care. Armé, not armé, civilian, not civilian. Israeli, not Israeli. Second house, Aries. Sense of self as a value. It is actually a value for me to be who I am. Also, what I do for a living has to be matching my sense of self according to me. This is why I had problems at work. I couldn't do corruption.
הקוקוס, אני רוצה לעשות עם שוקולד משהו.
Okay, where?
שמן קוקוס הזה.
Oh!
זה
איתה.
וגם תני את הצלחת, יש עוד משהו?
זהו. No. My coconut oil is having a double shift. One for the salves and one for the kitchen. Now, anything that doesn't go with that sense of self basically meets a fierce response. Now, it meets a fierce response as long as the person can respond. If the person cannot respond, it can be withdrawal or it can be delayed reaction, for where the helpless manifest, then once they are able to set that boundary, they set that boundary, and it shouldn't come as a shock to people that they set that boundary. Like I said, my best advice is not to believe that people don't care about their sense of self, about doing them, which also means income and vocation. And do not by any, like, the worst advice I could give you is to believe that people by any circumstances will compromise that. And if somehow you were so abusive that they had to compromise that, for heaven's sakes, don't expect them to be loyal. Now, again, I always talk about, how should I say that? Aries is about innovation. It's about what we do want. Who I am, not who I'm not. I don't go to say, I am not this, I'm not that, I'm not that. Who I am. This is who I am, this is what's important to me. Not getting that right is basically not getting me right. So you can't expect me to love you, to honor you, to respect you, to appreciate you, where you don't even get me. Now, Aries is also naive in the best sense of the word. I don't falsely accuse anybody. Even if I say with that name, I say, okay, maybe they were tortured. Maybe there's some technology. Okay, I leave all the C factors, and I also leave, okay, the classify technologies, so we can see which is which. Because Aries is not caring to try to punish or to try to, it's like if there's a problem, so it's like, okay, let's solve the problem. But that solution can be terminal if there is disrespect to the sense of self. Societies that are going to suffer the most, and this is why elite society suffers, because elite society is so power oriented that it's no longer identity oriented. Not a societal identity, but as individual identity. And with Aries, Aries doesn't say, well, so I'll live in a tent and I'll be happy. Because if that option was available, they would already try that. Aries says, wait a second, what's the core of the problem? Oh, the core of the problem, oh, let's say housing problems. Oh, the core of the problem, oh, they want me to do things I don't agree to do to violate my identity. They try to rape you. Okay, what is the core of the issue? Why do they try to rape for real estate? Because they money launder on rare earth minerals, and there is change in time, so they try to conquer land. By rape? Yeah. Uh, but to get to a point where you rape someone, they have to completely be psychotic. Yes, they induce self-psychosis to rape people. Uh, and then when they rape, they try to induce that psychosis within the raped so that the raped will rape more. Um, I would think like a house is like to enjoy the house and to travel, and yeah, they sacrifice people all the time there. So when do they just get to live? That they call that life. It's very odd. So wait a second. If we take, let's say, Monaco, evacuate the place from this type of dwellers, and have zero rape, zero slavery neighborhood. I mean, anyway, we're going to have to do that with any neighborhood, whether it is the project or it is Seth Keats and Eve. I say, if anyway, we're going to have to do that. Why not do that in a place where it's fancy? If you have to fight traffickers to have housing, why not have the housing? Anyway, you have to fight. Anyway, you have to fight them. So why not, besiege Aspen? And it also makes more sense because if you take a big mansion and you have a couple of houses there that nobody even sees the other, there's something that on that type of land you can do. And then people will not have so much rates of violence. So it will even be easier for them to meditate, to reduce rates of violence in these urban areas like Côte d'Azur. Where Anneke Lucas was supposed to live. Why not live there as zero rape, zero slavery? She was supposed to. They didn't say Côte d'Azur for no reason. They say Côte d'Azur because that was coming in her energy as a child. Because probably in her complexion of whether bloodline or energy or life energy, she's supposed to be living somewhere around such area. But without rape and slavery. The people that have no problem where it comes to residence, those are already the people that said that the Me Too went too far and that it was satanic panic. Now, every culture has its own Me Too and own satanic ritual abuse. And as cultures meet, we either meet the people that say, okay, well, I also have this problem. And nobody will be able to live with people that try to prevent them from expressing themselves, being who they are. Or violate their sense of self. The notion of normalcy is completely eroded. Everybody's neurodivergent today. What is neurodivergent? A nervous system normal reaction to an anomaly. An anomaly is a situation that violates sense of self, threatens the nervous system, and creates basically problem and of dissociation regarding the consciousness. Now, because they try to violate the sense of self, nothing that they do brings the result that they wanted to bring. It causes what? Assassination. Now, here is the thing. There are many things that happen and say nobody knows who is doing that. But there are, Aries is opposing Libra, and in Libra we have the first decan is people pleasing, the first decan of Aries is the world degree. In the middle decan, the scales balance. With Aries, what will happen? Okay, we try things, oh, that works! What works? We don't know yet, but it works. That's the tipping of the scale. The last degree is extreme action, but this is also for Aries where they can initiate connection. They have their sense of self, they know who they are, now they can be with another sovereign. Spica is in the last decan. And Spica is the stories like Giselle's story suddenly coming to the forefront and people understanding that it's not just the elite. And of course, and this is the thing, how the veil of ignorance goes, and a lot of judges use that. They would take a case and they would say, what do you believe that the person did like that? How do you believe that it should be treated? And my best tip to give to everybody is we should see what was the root cause that caused them to behave like that and neutralize that. What caused them to violate sense of self, and they need to be aligned with their own sense of self. So whatever my remedy, where it is jurisdiction, war, policy, or medicine, has to be to align person with their own sense of self in the most loving way, with the most minimal investment of energy in terms of so that I will not violate instead of aligning with sense of self. Aries Logos doesn't work like the logic of there are all types of logics and strategies. The strategist that says that if you fight fairly, you already lost the war doesn't work with Aries. Aries is the logos that people need to have their sense of self in order to have peace. People that don't have sense of self don't have inner peace, so they cannot be at peace with others. People that have sense of self can be at peace with others because they're too busy living their lives to be bothering about anything else. Aries, well, now I'm not here to say is right or wrong. This is the domain of Aries. It's not the domain of Taurus, it's not the domain of Pisces, it's not the domain of Scorpio. Domain of Aquarius, for example, and I saw that, what's the difference between the video that I made for Eclipse, videos Gracia Tasio makes, and video another colleague made that they have Ascendant and Moon in Aquarius. And they made a complete historical research of all the cases where solar eclipse brought to the fall of leadership. And I saw it very clearly with Aquarius. To be certain, it's a Saturn sign. To be certain, I need to see that something actually works, and I need to check so many cases to convince myself. And after once convinced themselves, they can already present that at a podcast. Whereas Aries logic is, by the time that I will do all that research, I will die 1,000 times. I ain't got no time. Okay, so I said, okay, what's that and that and that and that? Okay, so it's that, so it's that, so it's that, so it's that, so it's that. People might see factors later. Meantime, I stay in the pandemic. The sextile between the two is how innovative logic stands the test of time and become conservative science. And in Aquarius, we have an upturn of dogma, of scientific dogma. This is where people start understanding that astrology actually predicts something. By the way, when I began to do my Spirit of Matter channel, I worked more like my colleague. I basically took charts of thinkers, scientists, and so on. And I did Spirit of Matter. I said, okay, let's see the chart. Or I said, okay, let's read the Wikipedia value on the person and try to delineate the astrology that would come up. And then I was quite successful in delineating a lot of the possible configurations, because something can be the result of. And I did not know that those people were also coming from cloning lineages, and that they would do destiny stealing and energy swiping. And now I accidentally proved another thing, and that is that the natal chart of a person does contain their talents. So when they steal energy or destiny, what sticks is what's theirs. And all of this energy swiping and so on and so forth is over nothing. And this is where